वार्म वेलकम। नमस्कार और स्वागत है आप सभी का। भारत में 18 साल की उम्र से पहले शादी करने वाली लड़कियों की संख्या दुनिया में सबसे ज्यादा है, लेकिन सच्चाई ये भी है कि बाल विवाह एक वैश्विक समस्या है। विश्व स्तर पर हर 5 में से एक महिला की शादी उसके 18 साल पूरे होने से पहले कर दी जाती है। आज दुनिया में लगभग 65 करोड़ महिलाएं और लड़कियां ऐसी हैं जिनका विवाह 18 साल से कम उम्र में हुआ था। जस्ट राइट्स फॉर चिल्ड्रन बाल विवाह को समाप्त करने के खिलाफ एक मुहिम चला रहा है। ये दुनिया के सबसे बड़े सिविल सोसाइटी नेटवर्क में से एक है, जिसमें 250 से ज्यादा संगठन शामिल हैं। Just Rights for Children campaign, Child Marriage Free India, is the largest nationwide campaign against child marriage. And now this national movement has grown into a global fight to end child marriage by the year 2030. As you saw, in just the last few months, people and communities in more than 30 countries have taken the Child Marriage Free World pledge to end child marriage in their country and the rest of the world. Many of the issues that beset India are the challenges of other countries too. Many of the circumstances are similar. On this show, Creating a Child Marriage Free World, we will see how the Indian model of prevention, protection, prosecution, pledges at scale and partnership forms the core of the plans for the new child marriage free world. Joining me on the show to discuss this are Owen James, Global Coordinator, Child Marriage Free World; Winnie Nyandiga, Director, Just Rights for Children, Kenya and Africa Coordinator, Child Marriage Free World; Honorable Dilli Bahadur Chaudhary, former Chief Minister of Lumbini Province, Nepal and founder of BASE, a grassroots level organization in Nepal. We welcome all three of you for this very important conversation which needs to be spoken about. Owen, let me begin by asking you, Child Marriage Free India began as grassroots movement in the partnership with civil society organizations that work on ground. It evolved into a nationwide network of partnerships, and now the movement is at international scale. Tell us how Child Marriage Free World came about.
Child marriage is undeniably a global crisis. So while Just Rights for Children initially launched the national campaign to end child marriage in India, the vision was always to eradicate this crime worldwide. To achieve this, a sustainable, adaptable and scalable model was developed with global impact in mind. Seeing the profound change in India and learning from the experience and seeing the commitment of both the judiciary and the government, Just Rights for Children decided to expand the model to other countries in September of last year, just 5 months ago. And along with other dedicated international activists, we formed Child Marriage Free World and held our first ever global pledging week in December. It marked a significant milestone in our mission, and the response has already been overwhelming.
Right. Owen, in India, Just Rights for Children advocates the model of prevention, protection, prosecution, pledges at scale and partnerships to stop child marriage from occurring. How do you plan to apply this model in other countries?
Well, we decided to start with the fourth part of the model, pledges at scale. Even when the law is weak, some progress can be made through personal commitments, by parents pledging to ensure their sons and daughters will be protected from child marriage, by school, faith, and community leaders pledging that they'll protect the children they know from any adults that wish to marry them, and by girls and boys themselves making a commitment to reject child marriage. However, pledging is just a start. Using the picket strategy developed in India, we plan to secure new laws against child marriage, to ensure implementation of legislation to protect children, and to prosecute those adults and officials that organise and profit from child marriage. Author and Just Rights for Children founder Bhuvan Ribu has written a book about this model and the tipping point against child marriage in India.
Right.
To achieve this tipping point globally, we need to tackle the underlying cause of child marriage, social protection, sexual reproductive health, and reducing gender inequality. But we must also get our legal systems working to protect children. This is the inspiration the whole world can take from the recent success Just Rights for Children has had in India. Prevention, protection, and where needed, prosecution.
Right. Vinny, my next question to you, what do the laws in Africa say about child marriages there?
African laws drawn from multiple sources, our national, regional, and international agreements, in principle, recognize child marriage is a human rights violation, violence against children, and in cases of forced marriage, as we all know, it is classified as modern slavery. So the laws offer progressive provisions to address violence against women and girls, and in this case, child marriage, tackling the unique challenges across the African continent. But to also echo what Owen has said, that beyond this, what happens besides the progressive laws being in place, we also face issues like many other countries, including on implementation.
राइट चौधरी जी, मेरा सवाल अब आपसे है, मैं हिंदी में पूछना चाहूंगी आपसे, हमारे हिंदी के दर्शकों के लिए भी, बाल विवाह के मामलों पर नेपाल में कानून का क्या रुख रहा है?
नेपाल का कानून बहुत आगे भी बन गया था और खास करके कानून इम्प्लीमेंटिंग का जरूरी है। अभी कानून तो सारे बनते हैं लेकिन इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं होता है। जैसे इंडिया में भी बहुत बार कानून बना नहीं हुआ, वैसे ही नेपाल का हालत भी वही है। हम सारे कानून बनाते हैं लेकिन लॉ इन्फोर्समेंट खास करके कानून लागू नहीं करते हैं। इसलिए इसमें दो चीज़ का जरूरी है, एक पॉलिटिकल कमिटमेंट का जरूरी है, गवर्नमेंट का जरूरी था, अभी शुरू हुआ है, और दूसरा लॉ इन्फोर्समेंट के कानूनी तौर पर उसका उपचार का जरूरी था, वो दोनों काम अभी शुरू हुआ है।
तो आप कह रहे हैं कि पॉलिटिकल विल की कमी, देयर इज अ लैक ऑफ पॉलिटिकल विल एंड कमिटमेंट टू एनफोर्स द लॉज व्हिच प्रोटेक्ट द चिल्ड्रन फ्रॉम चाइल्ड मैरिजेस। मिस्टर चौधरी, चाइल्ड मैरिज इज अ सेंसिटिव इशू रूटेड as it is in our customs, religion. What are the kind of challenges you face in Nepal in fight against child marriage, and how do you plan to tackle those sensitivities on ground and address the challenges?
खास करके अभी नेपाल में जो हो रहा है, कुछ दिन आगे भुवन जी आए थे जो ये कैंपेनिंग का लीड कर रहे हैं इंडिया में और ग्लोबली, तो उनसे बहुत सारी बात हुआ था। उसके बाद हमने कहा कि एक बड़ा कैंपेनिंग करते हैं, प्राइम मिनिस्टर के लेवल के, मंत्री को लेवल के और कोalition गवर्नमेंट के लेवल पे, और सातों प्रोविंस, हमारे 7 प्रोविंस है, सातों प्रोविंस में हमने एक बड़ा कैंपेनिंग किया। तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने अभी कमिटमेंट किया है, उन्होंने साइन किया है। कुछ दिन आगे हम सारे जाके एक बड़ा कमिटमेंट किया प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने कि ये चाइल्ड मैरिज क्राइम है, इसको अंटे करना है। वैसे सारे सातों प्रोविंस के मिनिस्टर और हमारे सोशल डेवलपमेंट मिनिस्टर, हम सेंट्रल लेवल पर बात हुआ, और सातों प्रोविंस में, हमारे नेपाल में 7 प्रोविंस है, सातों प्रोविंस का चीफ मिनिस्टर ने सही किया, और कमिंग प्राइम मिनिस्टर अभी जो कोalition के हेड है शेरबहादुर देउवा, वो 50,000 जनता के आगे उन्होंने ये कमिटमेंट किया कि ये अंटे होना है, इसका लॉ इन्फोर्समेंट करना है, ये अपराध है। तो एक बड़ा काम हो रहा है नेपाल में, जहां सारे सरकार, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट का पूरा कमिटमेंट आ गया है, पॉलिटिकल कमिटमेंट आ गया है। ये नेपाल में फर्स्ट बार हुआ है, इतना बड़ा कैंपेनिंग कभी नहीं हुआ था।
So the political community, Mr. Chaudhary was saying, has come together. The national government as well as the provincial governments of Nepal have come together to fight this challenge, and you can see a lot is being implemented to prevent child marriages in Nepal. Vinny, given that there are local circumstances, regional variations, customs and cultural practices, what specific challenges across Africa will the campaign address?
To go back to echo back what my colleague has said about the 5 Ps in the campaign. The challenges that arise from these 5 Ps are some of the things that the campaign is going to address in Africa, by and large. So if we talk about prevention, we want to look at the persistent root causes, poverty and the arising injustices that continue to undermine the rights of girls and women, from gender equality, access to education, all these factors that arise and are connected to poverty that continue to drive child marriage. We want to look at the issue of unresponsive child protection systems, that many countries still lack the necessary frameworks. And even when they're there, as we've said, the issues that arise from it, like implementation. So how do we ensure that child protection systems are responsive to the needs of children, and in this case to many girls who are at risk of child marriage? The other one we want to look at, related to prosecution, is the limited legal enforcement. How do we strengthen access to justice, especially for the most vulnerable and marginalized? I mean, because when you talk about the issue of child marriage, it is mainly girls who come from poor families. So how do we ensure that the legal enforcement access to justice is strengthened? And then we also want to look at the fragmented efforts, which is also an issue that is anchored on the law. For example, when we have acts, laws that exist to protect children. However, the laws in the country, again, like constitutional provisions on religion, cultural autonomy, hinder the implementation of the rights. I call this legal, for example, and cultural paradox. So how do we ensure that fragmented efforts are, we do away with it? And the last one, if I may say, is the issue of commitments. When you talk about large scale, how do we ensure there is enough support in terms of finance and policy commitments so that the campaign can remain adequate and we can have impactful interventions?
Right. The challenges are there, but the commitment is there too. We are having a conversation on child marriage free world, and this conversation will continue after this quick break. Kahin mat jaiye, लौटिए इस break के बाद. Welcome back to this special campaign, Child Marriage Free World, and we are having a conversation with the esteemed panelists. And Vinny, let me begin by asking you here that what kind of response have you got from the communities on the ground?
Yes, so the first bit of the question, there is no one monolithic response, especially in the face of the challenges I haven't listed earlier. However, through our sustained efforts, including awareness levels, education, partnership with like-minded stakeholders and local leadership, we are building a strong African consensus against child marriage, a child marriage-free Africa and a child marriage-free world. Finally, communities, and when you say communities, I am looking at the nations at large, are beginning to see, and not necessarily to see, but to recognize the negative effects of child marriage. And this is seen first in our big advocacy when we launched it now from India where it started to globally last year in the pledging events we had in December, where we saw individuals, communities, and organizations such as schools uniting to just commit to do all they can to fight child marriage. And this includes the issues that, the challenges that contribute to child marriage. Other response, we see the law now responding. For example, Sierra Leone, last year we saw a groundbreaking law that is banning child marriage with very strong provisions, especially to the offenders and the perpetrators. We're talking about 15 years jail time if the prosecution goes through. There is a possibility of the girls who are married to annul the marriage, especially before this law came into effect. Regionally, we are seeing laws. For example, currently the heads of states in Africa, the heads of states and government in Africa are meeting in Addis Ababa, where we have the headquarters for the African Union. And some of the response we see on the ground is a new initiative, a proposal by the African Union, which is called Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls. This is an AU initiative that was initiated by presidents and heads of government in 2023. 2024, we did negotiations. 2025, as I'm speaking, this convention
Right.
is up
Right.
for adoption implementation.
Very quickly, Mr. Chaudhary is joining us back. आपने क्या चुनौतियां देखी हैं, क्या रिस्पांस रहा है कम्युनिटीज का?
कम्युनिटी का रिस्पांस अभी अच्छा है, लेकिन बहुत बहुत नीचे तक पहुंचना है, क्योंकि छोटा छोटा कम्युनिटी जहां आदिवासियों है, जहां बाउंडेड लेबर हैं, जहां छोटा कम्युनिटी है, उनके पास पहुंचना जरूरी है। अभी 1 लाख लोग इससे जुड़े हुए हैं, तो हम सारे गांव में अभी नहीं पहुंच पा रहे हैं, रिलीजियंस के पास पहुंचना है। तो इसका एक बड़ा चैलेंज है कि हम ग्रास रूट लेवल में पहुंच इसको इम्प्लीमेंट करें, लॉ इन्फोर्समेंट करें, और सरकार के तरफ से जो कानून बना हुआ है उसको लागू करना है। लागू के साथ साथ हम सोशल मूवमेंट भी चलाने का जरूरी है। अगर हम सोशल मूवमेंट नहीं चला पाएंगे तो ये इंडिंग नहीं होगा।
Right. Owen, do you have any thoughts on the conversation which happened today, on any suggestions made, any final words you'd like to share with the world on how people can get involved in this campaign to help child marriages?
No, one is the biggest thing we need for the political support, especially the government support. We have the three-layer government in Nepal, with the central government, provincial government, also for the local government. So we need for the both government support. One thing. Second thing, we need to.
So we need to involve everybody and penetrate at the grassroots level. That's what Mr. Chaudhary is saying. Your final thoughts, Owen. What do you suggest?
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you and NDTV for putting on the program, and all of those watching for their interest in this critical issue. We have to remember that child marriage denies girls many of their basic human rights, and it puts their health, education, and well-being at risk. It changes their whole future. It often ends a girl's formal schooling. Many child brides are forced to become domestic child laborers. And in most child marriages, the girl's husband is an adult much older than her, which increases that risk of physical and domestic violence, and all too often leads to child sexual abuse and child rape. When a girl who is not fully grown becomes pregnant, there's a higher risk of maternal mortality, and it even affects the life outcomes for her children. Child marriage is bad for the girls and boys involved, and it's bad for the country. So I'd urge all of your viewers in India to take part in the new government campaign, but for any of your viewers in other countries to visit childmarriagefree.world. Take the pledge. As many amazing campaigners in India have shown us, it is time to end child marriage. It is time. Be inspired and be part of it.
Right. So be part of it, pledge for it, fight against it, talk about it, and create awareness. That's the way forward. And well, this is a big challenge which is not even facing in our country, what we are facing in our country, but also throughout the world. So thank you so much, three of you, for joining us. This program ends here, but this conversation and this campaign will continue on NDTV. Thank you for watching. Namaste.